Prime Minister John Key's 10-day tour of Latin America finished earlier this week. While there were plenty of photo opportunities, there has been some criticism about the lack of any newsworthy agreements being signed. Professor of International Relations Robert Patman joins us tonight to give his thoughts on the trip. Good evening.
Good evening, Rebecca.
Tell us a little bit about the thinking behind these tours. What was the Prime Minister trying to achieve?
I think the thinking behind this particular trip, this four-nation trip, he visited 4 countries in Latin America over a 10-day period and met with 4 heads of state. I think the thinking was to consolidate growing political, diplomatic and economic ties with the continent. Latin America has seen a resurgence in the last 2 decades. It's seen both the growth of democracy but also the economies of that region have really strengthened, and there seem to be economic synergies between New Zealand and the region.
So what do you think he got out of this trip then?
I think actually quite a lot in terms of what he was looking for. In diplomatic terms, he got 3 countries, Chile, Colombia and also Mexico, to pledge firm support for New Zealand's bid to get on the UN Security Council in 2015. This is a major strategic goal of the New Zealand government. And here was the surprise win, as they put it. The president of Brazil, Ms. Dilma Rousseff, who likes to present herself as the Iron Lady, seemed to be all smiles as far as John Key was, and indicated, surprisingly, that she could see a position where Brazil could support New Zealand's bid for the UN Security Council. And the reason I'm stressing this is that Brazil is the nearest thing that Latin America has to a superpower. It's a rapidly rising power in the international system and is influential in Latin America because of that reason. And so the fact that Brazil has publicly hinted something which New Zealand officials didn't expect, they expected New Zealand, which is expected Brazil to keep its cards to its chest, quite openly came out and said that they said they would not rule out supporting New Zealand, which I think is a sort of guarded way of saying they would support New Zealand.
How crucial is it to New Zealand to get their support?
Quite crucial. Remember that the 2 contenders for the UN Security Council seat are Turkey and Spain. And Spain traditionally has quite close links with Latin America. Securing possibly 4 votes from Latin America is a good start. And I think that John Key was quite, in terms of his objectives at the outset, I think he'd be quite pleased with what occurred.
There's quite a wide variety of governments in the area.
Yeah.
So how do you think New Zealand is seen from South America?
I think that many Latin American countries don't know too much about New Zealand, but they are rapidly coming up to speed about that country. One of the fascinating things about globalisation, this growing interconnectedness in the world, is that we're discovering parts of the world we never had much connection with, and they're discovering us. And I would say there's a growing recognition. I think New Zealand is seen as an independent country, one that took a stand over non-nuclear defence in the mid-80s, and this is a region which has had prickly relations sometimes, or sensitive relations with the United States. So I think that won us a few brownie points. We didn't get involved in the US-led invasion of Iraq. Again, reinforced the impression that New Zealand, though a Western country on the whole, is quite capable of taking independent decisions.
And what about trade agreements? Was Latin America interested in doing business with us there?
Yes, and New Zealand actually, Fonterra, has a $1 billion business in Chile, has one of the biggest agricultural companies there, part of the Fonterra network, and it would seem that business is growing, and John Key was very upbeat. He hopes that the Fonterra model can be extended and see synergies between some of the economies between Latin America and what New Zealand has to offer in terms of exports.
Professor of International Relations Robert Patman, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.